All right, let me tell you about the morning our HOA president tried to break into my house, called 911 to teach me a lesson, and didn't realize my wife was the dispatcher on the line. It ended with her in cuffs in front of half the neighborhood, phones up like it was a season finale. And the wild part? The fuse on this whole thing was a mailbox. Not a dangerous dog, not loud parties, not some broken-down truck in the yard. A mailbox I painted the wrong color. If you've ever lived under an HOA, you already know how fast something tiny can turn into a power trip. If you haven't, just know this story is basically a warning label. So, totally different names, new place, new details. My name's Ethan Brooks. I'm a game designer, work from home, keep to myself. My wife, Lila, is a senior 911 dispatcher. 8 years in, calm as a surgeon, and she remembers every repeat caller the way bartenders remember bad tippers. We moved into this peaceful subdivision outside Denver about 7 months ago, a neighborhood called Pine Hollow. It's the kind of place where lawns look like they're measured with rulers, and every house has the exact same shade of polite beige. We liked it for what it was: quiet, safe, boring in the best way. The HOA seemed normal at first, friendly emails about trash bins, reminders about holiday lights coming down on time. Nothing that made me sweat. Then our mailbox finally gave up on life. The old one was sun-cracked and wobbly, like it was hanging on out of spite. One Saturday morning, I drove to the hardware store to replace it. I didn't buy anything flashy, just a sturdy steel mailbox, deep forest green, the kind of color that looks clean against white fencing and doesn't scream for attention. I spent 2 hours installing it, leveling it like I was building something that mattered. Lila brought me iced tea and made fun of me for being so proud of a mailbox, and she wasn't wrong. It was the most suburban thing we'd done since moving in. I stood back, admired it for a second, cleaned up my tools, and went inside thinking my job was done. 24 hours later, I opened my front door in sweatpants, coffee in hand, and there's a bright orange violation notice taped dead center on my door like a parking ticket from hell. Big stamps, bold red letters. It said I'd violated Pine Hollow HOA Regulation 6.1.3, mailbox standards, and I had 48 hours to replace my non-compliant mailbox or get fined $60 a day. I read it 3 times because my brain refused to accept mailbox colors were even in the universe of things adults fight about. While I'm still staring at it, I hear a soft click, click, click. I look up, and across the street, there's a woman photographing my mailbox like she's documenting a crime scene. Early 50s, hair sprayed into a helmet, blazer with a shiny HOA president badge, clipboard clutched to her chest like it's a shield. She locks eyes with me and smiles the way someone smiles right before they try to ruin your week. I walk down the driveway and call out, "Morning. Can I help you?" She spins around, full performance mode. "Ethan Brooks," she says like she already hates me. "I'm Marla Vance, president of the Pine Hollow Homeowners Association. That mailbox is not approved." 48 hours. The confidence in her voice was unreal, like she was delivering a verdict from a throne. I actually laughed because I thought there was no way this was serious. "Can you show me that rule?" I ask, because I read our HOA bylaws when we moved in, and I don't remember mailbox colors coming up. She didn't blink. "The updated regulations were passed last month. You were notified." I told her I never got any update. She tilted her chin like that was cute. "Ignorance doesn't excuse noncompliance. This is your final warning." Final warning? We'd been speaking for 10 seconds. She walked away in those sharp little clicks of authority, and I stood there with this slow-burning insult settling in my chest. She wasn't correcting a problem. She was enjoying the moment she got to talk down to me. That night, I told Lila, and the second I said Marla Vance, her face went flat. Not surprised, not curious. Tired. "Oh, her," Lila said. "We get calls from that neighborhood all the time. Same voice. Same drama. Noise complaints. Suspicious activity. Kids playing too loud. Always her." She told me dispatch had flagged Marla months ago because she was calling 911 for nonsense like someone's barbecue smoke, smelling chemical. Lila had been documenting it quietly because that's what you do with repeat fake callers. You build the pattern. Meanwhile, I did my own homework. I pulled every HOA document we had. Then I drove to the community office and asked for the official bylaws. And here's where my irritation turned into something sharper. Regulation 6.1.3 did not exist. The rules ended at Section 5.8. There was nothing about mailbox colors. Nothing. Marla had just made it up. Invented it to harass me because she didn't like green. Now, I'm not a naturally confrontational guy. I'm the kind of person who changes lanes early to avoid drama. I even thought about swapping the mailbox just to keep my peace. But there was something about her lying to my face with that smug calm that flipped a switch in me. I work hard. I've built my career from nothing but a laptop and stubbornness. And this woman believed her little title gave her the right to bully anyone who didn't match her taste. So I decided I wasn't moving an inch. If she wanted to fight over a mailbox, she was going to do it in daylight. I didn't change it. Instead, I installed a small security camera angled right at the mailbox because I had a feeling she wasn't done. I was right. The next morning, I woke up to 5 new violation notices on my door like she'd been practicing her slap tape technique. Grass allegedly too tall. Curtains, wrong shade. Car parked too close to curb. Basketball hoop, unapproved recreational structure. The mailbox again, double-stamped in red. I looked across the street, and she was literally watching me through binoculars, smiling like she was enjoying a private show. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about standards. It was about control. She needed a target, and I happened to be breathing. After the so-called deadline, she marched up and hand-delivered a $480 fine. She had 2 friends with her, matching HOA polos, smirking like backup singers. "I tried to warn you," Marla said, voice dripping fake sympathy. "If you don't pay, I'll place a lien on your property." I held the invoice up and said calmly, "You can't fine me for breaking a rule you invented." Her smile widened like she'd been waiting for resistance. "Oh, I can enforce community standards. And since you're accumulating violations, you're now subject to a mandatory property inspection." I said, "You're not stepping on my property without a court order, and you are absolutely not coming inside my house." She stared at me the way people stare at a dog that just disobeyed. "We'll see," she said softly, that quiet threat that's supposed to make you fold. Behind her, one of her friends whispered, "Marla, are you sure?" Marla looked at me and said, loud enough for me to hear, "I know people at the police department. One call from me and they come running." Saturday morning, around 8 a.m., I hear pounding on the door like someone's trying to break down a bank vault. Through the peephole, I see Marla at my doorstep with 6 people behind her wearing navy vests that said HOA inspection team in gold letters. One guy was holding bolt cutters. I almost laughed. It looked like a raid staged by people who'd never actually raided anything in their lives. I opened the door with the chain still on. "What are you doing?" I asked. Marla shoved a paper toward the gap. "Interior inspection. Per HOA authority." I glanced at it. It was some random bylaw about pool maintenance. Not even close. "Do you have a court order?" I asked. She laughed right in my face. "I don't need one. These are HOA rights." I said, "You are not coming in. Leave my property." She stepped forward and tried to shove the door with her shoulder, like she thought brute force counted as authority. The commotion draws people out fast. Neighbors started appearing on porches, some with coffee, some with phones already up. Mr. Hanley across the street was filming. The couple 2 doors down was filming. Even the mail carrier paused mid-route to watch. Marla sees the crowd and instantly turns into a politician. "This is what happens when standards slip," she announces. "A green mailbox today, a junkyard tomorrow. Is that what you want?" It didn't land. Someone yelled back, "It's a mailbox, Marla." Another voice, "Leave him alone." You could see her panic for a split second, like she couldn't understand why her audience wasn't clapping. Then she lost it. She grabbed the security chain and yanked hard, trying to snap it. It didn't break. So she tried to wedge herself through the narrow opening. Like a grown woman attempting a home invasion through a 6-inch gap was somehow legitimate. I stepped back, hands up, not touching her. She tripped on the doorframe, and suddenly she screamed, "Assault!" He shoved me. Everyone saw it. The neighbors started shouting that she was lying. She ignored them and whipped out her phone. "Fine," she announced, turning on speaker. "I'm calling 911. You are all witnesses." The line rang twice, and then that calm voice answered. 911. "What's your emergency?" My stomach dropped. I knew that voice like I knew my own heartbeat. It was Lila. Marla launched into what I can only describe as suburban Shakespeare. "This is Marla Vance, HOA president of Pine Hollow. I'm being attacked by a non-compliant homeowner refusing inspection. He shoved me. He's dangerous. I smell chemicals coming from the house. Could be drugs." Lila stayed professional. but I heard the steel underneath. Ma'am, to clarify, you are attempting to enter a private residence without permission? Marla snapped. I have authority. HOA bylaws. Lila, do you have a court order? Marla, I don't need one. I'm the HOA president. Lila's voice stayed steady. Being HOA president does not grant law enforcement authority. Are you currently on his property after being asked to leave? That question hung in the air like a trap closing. Marla didn't even notice. Well, yes, but he's being unreasonable. Lila said, false reporting to emergency services is a crime. This call is recorded. Officers are on the way. Do not attempt to enter the home. Marla huffed, still believing she was winning. Good. When they arrive, I'm going in with them. Police rolled in about 10 minutes later. No sirens, just that quiet, practiced energy of people who've dealt with drama before breakfast. Officer Alvarez got out first, older guy, calm eyes. Marla marched right up to him, pointing at me like a prosecutor. Arrest him, she demanded. He assaulted me. He's hiding illegal chemicals. Alvarez raised a hand gently. Let's start from the beginning. She repeated her story while his partner was already watching the neighbor videos. Phones were coming out everywhere. Mr. Hanley handed over a clip. The teens handed over theirs. It was a full HD compilation of Marla trying to break into my house while I stood there not touching her. Alvarez turned back to her. Ma'am, do you have any evidence he made contact with you? She gestured at her shoulder theatrically. Alvarez asked, do you have a court order to enter the home? She said it again, like a spell. I'm the HOA president. Alvarez just nodded slowly. That does not allow you to enter someone's home. Also, dispatch tells us you've made multiple 911 calls from this neighborhood, many classified as non-emergency. Her face went pale. That's wrong. I know people here. Call Chief Ramsey. Alvarez said, calm as rain. Chief Ramsey is the one who requested we document your misuse of emergency services. That's when she snapped. She bolted past him toward my front door yelling, I'll show you the violations myself. She actually grabbed my doorknob. Alvarez caught her arm and pulled her back hard enough to stop her, but not hurt her. Ma'am, he said, that is attempted unlawful entry. Click. Handcuffs. Right on my lawn. She screamed. You can't do this. I'm the president. Alvarez replied. Today you're trespassing and making false reports. You are under arrest. For 1 second the street went dead quiet, like everyone needed to hear it. Then the relief started to pour out in voices. Not cheering. Exactly. More like exhaling after holding a breath for years. At the station later, it was chaos in a different way. The lobby was full of neighbors. People I barely knew were holding folders, screenshots, printed emails. Years of Marla incidents. A young couple talked about her calling police because their baby cried too long. An older man described her harassing him over imaginary weeds until he sold his house. It was like the neighborhood had been collecting receipts waiting for a moment like this. Marla's daughter even showed up, eyes tired, voice shaking. She apologized to a room of strangers, said her mom had been spiraling for years and wouldn't listen, said she came because she was scared someone would get hurt if this kept going. The prosecutor told us Marla was being charged with false reporting, trespass, attempted forced entry, and they were opening a financial audit into HOA funds because there were irregularities. Turns out community meetings on the HOA card included fancy dinners and wine tastings. Office supplies included personal shopping. Thousands missing. The room got angry in a way that felt clean and justified. People weren't thrilled she got arrested. They were furious they'd been paying dues to fund her ego. The HOA held an emergency meeting that week. Marla was removed. A new board got elected. First vote, they wiped every petty aesthetic control that had no safety purpose. Mailboxes could be any color. Curtains could be whatever you wanted. Grass rules got reasonable. The neighborhood felt lighter overnight. And yeah, within a month, our street looked like a paint sample wall. Teal, red, purple, yellow. Mine stayed green, because after all that, it wasn't about the color, it was about not being controlled by someone who never earned that power. But here's the part one still wrestle with. I feel satisfied, sure. Justice caught up to someone who used fear like a hobby. But I also can't unsee her daughter's face in that lobby, or the way Marla looked in the back of the cruiser, smaller than her badge ever made her seem, like she genuinely thought she was the hero. Does that excuse what she did? Not even close. But it makes me wonder how many neighborhoods have a Marla running wild just because nobody wants to be the first person to say no. How much bullying gets called just HOA stuff when it's really one loud narcissist abusing a tiny title? And what happens to a community when everybody stays quiet too long? So I want to hear from you. Was I right to stand my ground over a mailbox, or should I have swapped it early and avoided the explosion? Have you ever dealt with someone who used a little authority to make your life miserable? Drop your HOA horror stories in the comments. The petty ones, the scary ones, the ones that still make you mad when you think about them. Let's talk about where community standards end and controlling people begins, and whether folks like Marla deserve consequences, empathy, or both. If you made it this far, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you would have done standing in my doorway that morning. Because I promise, those stories are always more complicated than they look from the outside.